Hi, everyone. This is Coach DeMarco here with another episode of Get Better Basketball Live. And I'm here today with Coach Jason Shelangouski, who is the head coach at Council Grove High School, coaches for the Lady Braves. During his tenure, they have won 4 league titles, 4 league tournament championships, a sub-state semifinals, 2 sub-state runner-ups, 2 sub-state championships, and even a state fourth place finish in 2014. During this time, Coach Shelangouski has a record of 138 over those 6 seasons, and in his career, a great record of 166 and 67, not including what he's done this past season with the Lady Braves. So Coach has a really impressive resume, and I've seen a lot of what he puts out on Twitter, and I've been really impressed with Coach. He joins our GBetBBLive chat pretty much every week and shares a lot of great resources for coaches. And one of the things that I've seen has been, in particular, has been his core values. And he's going to talk a little bit about that today, and also his use of championship roles. So I'm really excited about today's Get Better Basketball Live just because of the opportunity to talk with Coach Shelangouski and get into a little bit more detail on some of these topics. So I'm going to turn it over to Coach and let him jump in and start talking about his core values. And, it's going to be a great opportunity for coaches to learn.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That probably ballooned up entry for it. But yeah, I am. This past season, we finished actually 11-9. Had a chance to be a really good team in sub-state and fell just short in overtime. But kids probably played their best game, and that's what you asked for the last game of the year. And it's surreal where we're at right now too, because there were a lot of kids who did make the state tournament that actually won their first round game and then didn't get to finish the state tournament. So, for some kids, they didn't get to end their careers the right way. And for our kids, I mean, we did get to end their career, but obviously they would have still picked to go a little bit further too. So the thing I'm going to share today, if you want me to go ahead and share my screen, is our champion roles. So I'm going to get this started here. So we have definitive roles that we kind of give people each year, and we try to sit down individually with each kid and talk to them about their roles. But ultimately, we feel like to be the most successful, we still have to we're kind of like that program that do your job in half of somebody else's, because we want to make sure that everything is covered as much as we possibly can. So the core values that we actually have gone by these past few years are different than what I actually had developed when I was in my master's program. When I was in my master's program, I developed kind of a pyramid of success, a lot like John Wooden did. That was an assignment we did, and I really liked that. And it's not that I don't still believe in those values, but this was something that my junior high coach actually kind of talked with me about, and I really enjoyed it. And so we've kind of made it our own, and we've kind of made it just our hashtag of LARB, which nobody usually knows. They probably think I'm like massively misspelling something, but it stands for loyal, aggressive, relentless, and brave. And, for us, loyalty is huge. We want loyalty throughout the program in terms of coaches, with players, with the school, community, everything we can, classroom level. In terms of aggressiveness, we talk to the kids a lot about the way we pursue things, whether it's we pursue things on the court, off the court, we pursue things after timeout, we pursue things before halftime, just every situation we can possibly think of, because we value each kid and what they can bring to the table as much as we possibly can. And the way to do that is in an aggressive way. Relentless. That's something that I really brought as a staple as well. I'm a big fan of Tim Grover and his talk on relentlessness and how he's trained athletes over the years, and the difference between people who are relentless and the people who train hard. And when we coach our kids, we want to make sure that they have a passion for not just the game, but for their teammates, for their school, for their role, and everything that we possibly can. And it doesn't always happen that way. It's not 100% effective, but we really try to roll with those people who embrace that role. And we're actually the Braves, and so this last one kind of fit really well with just our mentality. Is for us, being brave is being okay with the end result as long as we gave it as much as we possibly can. And in every situation, times where you have to kind of step up and be a champion leader or a champion follower or a champion anything. And part of that is being brave and having enough bravery to pursue a responsibility too.
Coach, I like how you mentioned the hashtag, and it's people may not know LARB. I know you've talked a little bit about it, but I think the big thing is your players know it, and it sounds like you guys are really living through those values. And with my team, we actually, my last season, we voted as a group, and we actually had enthusiasm as one of our core values, but we felt that enthusiasm kind of encompassed all the other values. So it was always there, and we didn't want to lose it, but it was going to be there. And the players came down and they voted on, we had resilient and relentless. Those were kind of our two finalists for votes, very similar, obviously, but they went with relentless as well because of our, pressure defense, and then obviously the benefits. So I love, how you incorporated relentless there. And one other thing that came to mind as you were talking was the use of brave. It's cool because you guys are the Braves, but that's not a typical, as a typical value as I've seen for a lot of teams. So I kind of like how you took that. And was that something that the JV coach brought along, or is that something that you incorporated because of the team name, or where did you really come up with that brave as that last value?
Well, like I said, my junior high coach kind of had brought some of this stuff with him, and I really enjoyed it, especially when it was one of the first junior high coaches that I've had that have really 100% bought into everything we're doing at the high school level. And so in order to do that, one of the things that I value is I value reaching out to youth coaches, and I value reaching out and helping, our junior high coaches and everything, because if you want a program to be successful, you need to make sure it kind of runs through the train of everybody in terms of who's on board. And he's definitely been on board, and he's been a great addition since we've gotten him, and Brave was one of them. And we both kind of thought, we are the Braves, and it actually works out really well to talk about what that means with kids. And so we spend time each year talking about it and what it means. So
just a follow up on kind of just on the topic of values again, thinking about player buy-in with those core values. And I think I saw a post earlier today from Radius Athletics, and they mentioned, if your team doesn't have height, it's not your fault. But if your team doesn't have an identity, that is your fault as a coach. And they always post a lot of great stuff out there. And, how do you get the players invested in these values? And I know that was something that, I had to think about as a coach and really think about our identity. And I can see from what you put out there and the way your team plays and how successful you've been as a coach that your players are living these values. So what's that process been like over the 6 years to get the players invested in being loyal, aggressive, relentless, brave? And what's that look like for you?
Honestly, I think that any coach would probably tell you that as much as we want to post positively, it's not always 100% of kids that buy into everything, because it might be, and it might be for a personal reason, a selfish reason, whatever it is. And I've been pretty blessed in the years that I've coached both boys and girls. I've had some really good people, and not everybody's always been the best player, but in order to get people, I think, to buy into values, you have to show them why they're valuable. And whatever, it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows with me. It's not always going to be the blow up your ego kind of coaching, but we talk to them every day about, something that whether we give them a thought of the day or, whatever it is, we try to connect it as much as we can to our core values, and explain it in that way and get them thinking. Because even if you only catch them on 2 or 3 days throughout a season where man, they have a whole aha moment of why we said what we did, then it's learning forever. So, and that's kind of the key, in my opinion.
So how do you make that connection? I know that you have championship roles, and I really like that term. And it's not one that I've heard before in terms of having championship roles. So I like the use of it. And how do you kind of make that connection between the values and then I know the next kind of piece is that those championship roles. So.
Well, for us, we talk to the kids a lot about offensive and defensive roles, and that can be in any program. That can be the press you run, the plays you run, the stuff you run after timeout or whatever it is. But for us, we talk heavily about offensively. We think everybody should be a threat. Not everyone's going to get the same amount of shots, but we think everybody should be a threat. So when it is your opportunity to score, you need to be willing and ready to do it. It's not going to always go down. And I think in this day and age, I think a lot of kids are perfectionists, and they may not know it, but they're perfectionists to where if they don't make a shot, if they don't get a steal, if they don't, then they think, well, I'm just not good. And that's not the case. There's so many ways you can affect a game. And so we talk to them about offensively and defensively, expecting them to be, polished in their roles, because you may not be the person who steals it every time, but you're going to be the person who finishes the layup after somebody does, and you need to make sure that, like I said, you do your role and half of somebody else's. Maybe the next time you do get a deflection, somebody picks up your ball and you go and finish it. And there's a lot of connection with that. And, the relentlessness that we talk about as a program has to be on both ends. We have to want to score every single time or get the best shot. We have to want to get a stop every single time, and realize that if we don't, we need to push it back and make sure that we match whatever just happened, or go above it. And that's kind of, what we talk to them about with the offensive and defensive roles.
Coach, just thinking about, you said a couple of times that you have to do your role and half of someone else's. And I really like that, because I think it's really being the consummate teammate, picking up your teammates, and there's things that are going to go wrong in the flow of the game. And if you can do part of what your teammate's role is in that moment, you have to pick each other up. And we know that's going to happen. There's going to be mistakes. It's going to be messy at times. Is that something, you talk about a lot with your players? And where did you start? Where did that come from? When did you start using kind of that phrase or that terminology? Because I do really like it. And again, I don't hear a lot of coaches using that. So I think it's something that I'd be interested in. I'm sure coaches out there listening would be interested to learn more about.
Well, for us, we do talk about it several times throughout the year if we feel like it warrants it. I think for us, when we talk to the kids, it's kind of on feel. How did practice go? How did the game go the night before? Whatever. But that do and half of somebody else's, to me, it sticks with me because, in life, like I'm a teacher, and I have my role as an ELA teacher to teach language arts to the kids, reading and writing and speaking and listening. But if I don't put something in there historically, if I don't put something in there that's related to math or science or whatever, then I'm not doing my full job, because I feel like it's our job as a team to like you said, the consummate teammate. You want to make sure that being on that team, you're all in with everything. And I'm not an expert in science or math or social studies. I know enough to get by, but when it comes to basketball, we think that it's very valuable for kids to understand that you don't have to be locked in your role. There's other ways to expand on your role, and some people don't really like their role, and so we keep telling them it's not edged in stone. It's this is what we expect of you, and if you want to do more, great, do more, but keep working it more, because it might be something that we feel like is a deficiency right now that could become a strength very soon.
Before we get into, I see the bench in the community there. I'm really interested to hear about those, but just thinking about players, and I'm just thinking personally, having to have some conversations with players about, where they fit in, during certain years. And you might have that player who's going to earn extra minutes by being that hustle player, or a great defender, or a great rebounder. So what's your approach, or what would your advice be to coaches out there as you talk about championship roles and some of the, not everyone's going to score 25 points, and not everyone's going to go out there and get 20 rebounds, right? Or 20 assists, whatever it is. Or if they do, it'd be pretty nice. But
Yeah.
so, how do you manage your players and kind of talk about roles and really work with play? And I know this is not an easy task, but I think one that coaches would be curious to learn more about.
Well, I spend a lot of time, I think, having private conversations with kids because, kids anymore, they don't want to be called out in front of people. And I still do that from time to time as a coach, and that's something I get better at. But I try to spend a lot of time having private conversations and telling a kid, this is kind of what we expect of you, and this is what we need you to do. And, if you want to expand on that, great. Here's ways I think you can do that. But I think all coaches, should take that approach of if you do your job, you will play. In our program, this year we had 24 kids. One of them was a foreign exchange student that had never played basketball before, besides maybe in some PE classes. And I'll tell you, when she scored the one basket she scored, the place lost their mind, and we loved it. And I almost just ran out on the court and picked her up, honestly. But we had we talked to the kids about, if you come in and you work hard, you're going to play. The problem is sometimes the role at the level that they want is not matching. And if we could, I think as coaches, we'd put everybody on the varsity team, and we'd let everybody play equal minutes and everything, because that we love them that much. But in real life, that's not always the CEO. Not everybody. Sometimes you have to start in the mailroom and work your way up, and that's what we try to talk to the kids about, because it's not going to be something that's just handed to people. They do have to work for it, and that's kind of what we believe. So.
That's a great story too about that foreign exchange student scoring the basket. And I think as coaches, those are the moments that you really think about and look back, and you made a difference for a kid, and and that experience for the teammates too. We've all had those role players, and I like to your point about players working their way in. And I think about some of the players I had on my bench over the years who started out and didn't get a lot of minutes, and then throughout the season really worked and worked and worked. And our goal was kind of like, we know this player can help us at the varsity level. If we can work with them through the season and they're going to compete every day in practice, we can find that role for them. One year it was like a really effort-based player. One year it was a scorer off the bench who wasn't a great defender, and we made defensive focus for them. We got into the state tournament. They got a couple of huge baskets, and they did a great job on defense. So thinking about the bench and kind of seeing your next topic here, how do you manage that, and how does that fit into the championship roles?
Well, I think first, when you talked about some kids that kind of rose up from the bench level, I also tend to point out to kids too that it can go the exact opposite way. You could be a starter that ends up losing their spot because of being complacent or whatever too, and that doesn't happen too often, I guess, for me personally, because I believe that each year we have to pick a starting five and really work at it, and not only give it a couple games to see if it'll work or not, because I'll leave that to the pros in terms of the efficiency rating and things. Like in the high school level, we have games to play, games to win, things to learn throughout the course of the year. And, when we use the bench, a couple things that I talk about with the kids is I want an exciting bench. I actually go back and I watch film, and I want to make sure that when people are scoring, especially in the second half, when I can watch our bench and the play at the same time, I want to see people out of their seats. I want to see people, cheering for people. And if I don't see that happening, or if I see a couple kids pouting and things, we discuss those types of things, because that's not championship roles. That's selfish. And luckily, I haven't had to have very many conversations like that, but we want an exciting bench. And that way, when your bench is engaged, in my opinion, it doesn't matter if they've, necessarily been in a game yet. It could be the last 2 minutes and 4 kids have fouled out, and you need somebody to go get a stop. It might be a kid who hadn't played yet, but if that kid's emotionally invested in the game and has been a high energy kid on the bench, then, I have nothing to worry about. I kind of look at it like, and I actually just saw this today. They actually said Mark Madsen was one of the worst picks for the Lakers ever. And I don't know, I guess I see it differently. I mean, he wasn't that great of a player, but that guy was an energy person. He won a couple championships, and he was a total dork on the bench. But I loved every second of it when I look back as a coach, and I think that's what I want on the bench. I want kids who are emotionally invested, so that way when we do call their number, they're ready to go, no matter if it's for 10 seconds, 10 minutes, or whatever.
It's interesting too. You mentioned, talking about the bench, and I think that John Wooden's quote, if players aren't doing the things they should be doing, put them on the bench and they'll come around. So, I think it does work both ways. You have those players who, do a great job and they earn more minutes, and then sometimes there's times where a player might need to sit a little bit and kind of say, hey, I need to play a little bit better. Or for me, it wasn't always necessarily about some of the mistakes and things that happened. It was really like effort. I always looked at, if players weren't giving the effort on defense primarily, then I felt like that was a chance where they might end up on the bench. You'd have to have those conversations with them. And then, the other part to this, because, what I like about you in our conversations is that it's not just about basketball. Some of the things you do with your program go beyond that, and it's life lessons. And I see the community mentioned here, and I think about things we tried to do as a program in the community. We worked with the Special Olympics and, really trying to teach the players to have accountability, to have appreciation, some of our values. And I'm curious to hear about how you fit, thinking about championship roles. What role does the community piece play in your program and what you guys do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, the way kids carry themselves in the community is huge. I think the way they carry themselves could end up putting fans in the stands, could end up getting people, supporting you and behind you. When I coached boys up in Iowa, one of the things that we used to do is help serve Carson Christmas, and Carson was the town, and we would help serve meals and clean up and everything else with that. And it was just a way for our boys to get involved in the community and understand the value of giving back. We haven't been able to do much of that down in Kansas, but one thing we've always done, with the exception of one of my years as a head coach, is we also do run a Coaches versus Cancer event. And the Coaches versus Cancer event that we run each year has always been to send money to the American Cancer Society for research purposes or whatever. And so we take one night, we raise as many funds as we can and send it. But this year we actually changed it up to we had started a local fund to help local families with medical costs. And so half of the money went to the American Cancer Society that we raised this year, and half of the money actually went to a local chapter to be able to give back to the community. And when we explain that to the kids, a lot of times coaches kind of have to be the ones to headline that because it does deal with finances and things. But we talk to the kids about that. We talk to them about, how much this could affect somebody, and it could be somebody that they know, it could be a family that they know, and it's a small town, so they should really know about everybody anyways. And that's the point. I think it's always going to be bigger than basketball or bigger than volleyball or whatever sport you're playing. You have to understand that one day you're going to graduate and you're not playing professionally in something, and you have to be a professional in your life. And there's ways to do that, and we hope that we try to carry as many ways for them and show them the way as we possibly can.
That's awesome. Just hearing about the work you do with the American Cancer Society and some of the other things. I think the lessons that kids or student athletes learn in going through that process, it's much bigger than themselves, and it's about thinking about other people and really trying to help people out. So those lessons are invaluable. And, I think about as a coach, the things that hopefully my players took away and hopefully they learned through experiences like that as well. So that's great that you do that.